Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Workforce Wednesdays. My name is Jacqueline Buck, and I'm the Director of Workforce Strategy at the Department of Employment and Economic Development. We are so excited to have you join us today for this networking series that focuses on sharing best practices and workforce strategies. Our events occur the first Wednesday of each month from 11 to 12, with an unplugged question and answer session from 12 to 12:30, in which attendees can unmute themselves and ask questions not only of our presenters, but also of our workforce strategy consultants. So I want to thank you again for joining us today for the event titled Recruiting and Hiring a Diverse Workforce. And right now I'm going to turn it over to our leader for today, Adeshewa Adesiji, who's a workforce strategy consultant for the 7-county metro area.
Thank you, Jackie. So good morning, everyone. As Jackie mentioned, my name is Adeshewa Adesiji. I am the workforce strategy consultant located here in the metro area. Thank you very much for joining us for this Workforce Wednesday session. So let's get into the agenda. Next slide, please. So for today's session, we'll talk about a few things. First, we'll do a quick summary of data talking about Minnesota's future workforce. We'll go into understanding diversity, so surface level versus deep level, benefits and disadvantages, ideas for increasing diversity recruiting and hiring, tools for diversity recruiting and hiring. And then I am happy to tell you that we have 2 guest speakers today who to talk about what their companies are doing in this space. We have Allison Holzerlin, VP of Human Resources for Doran Companies, and Jim Windorf, VP of Human Resources for Viracon. We will wrap up with an in review summarizing today's session, and then please stay with us for 30 minutes after the session for Workforce Wednesday Unplugged. So as I mentioned, I'm a workforce strategy consultant with the Department of Employment and Economic Development. In total, there are 6 of us located throughout Minnesota. So what we do is that we work with employers, helping them to develop innovative workforce solutions for their recruiting, retention, and workforce development needs. So what does that mean? Assisting key stakeholders in the successful implementation of regional plans, leverage expertise in sector workforce development strategies, connect key stakeholders to workforce development resources, and we design tools and resources to support businesses in developing strategic workforce solutions. Next slide. So as you can see, these are the 6 workforce strategy consultants, including myself and the region that we cover. I believe that a copy of this presentation or this slide will be shared. So if you are not familiar with the workforce strategy consultant in your area, I do highly suggest that you reach out to them and start developing that relationship. So when it comes to diversity, recruiting, and hiring, there's a certain things that come to mind and what we think of. Understanding diversity, the need to understand what is diversity. People have different interpretations of what it means to with diversity when it comes to hiring and retention. Unconscious biases, having us look at unconscious biases and its effect on diversity, recruiting, and hiring, and diversifying our workforce. Equity and inclusion, just as important as diversity in this space. What are the benefits and disadvantages? Is it more beneficial for a company to implement a plan to increase the diversity among its workforce or not? Relationship building, building relationships with communities that surround that employer's location. Outreach to the BIPOC communities, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color communities. And then lastly, company reputation. How will this affect your reputation? Will you become an employer of choice? Will you become that employer that other employers look to and have strategies that they want to implement to and copy to produce those same results? So this is the first out of 2 questions that we are going to propose to the audience. Please answer this in the chat box. Share an idea your company has or is currently using to recruit diverse talent. We'd like to know, what is it that companies are already doing or thinking about doing when it comes to diversity recruiting and hiring? Next slide. So I think it's important for us to really look at the data and look at Minnesota's workforce to support the idea and support the reasoning for diversity recruiting and hiring. So what you have in front of you is Minnesota race and ethnicity projections for 2018 to 2038. So as you can see, within the next 17 years, Minnesota's population is expected to grow by 11.3%. As you can see, the highest growth will be within the communities of color. For example, Black or African American non-Hispanic, 74.5%, American Indian or Alaskan Native non-Hispanic at 13.3%, Asian or other Pacific Islander, 69.3%. You have two or more races, non-Hispanic at 58.5%, and Hispanic of any race at 48.8%. The only group that is expected to decrease is white non-Hispanic by 1.6%. Now, the majority of Minnesota will remain white. However, these communities will be growing not only in the metro, but within pockets within or throughout Minnesota. So now if we look at age projections between 2018 and 2038, the population that is going to be over 75 years of age and over are 87.1%. So we talk about the silver tsunami. A lot of baby boomers and people are going to be retiring or planning for retirement. As you can see, the ages after that coming in are much less than the amount of people expected to be 75 years or older. So what that means from these two slides are two things. First, the amount of people leaving the workforce is going to be more than the amount of people entering the workforce. And two, those that are entering the workforce are going to look much different than the ones that are entering the workforce today. Hence, the face of Minnesota's workforce will become more diverse. So I think it's important that there's an understanding of diversity and why it's important in today's workforce. So diversity in the workplace is all about creating an inclusive environment, accepting of everyone's individual differences, enabling all employees to achieve their full potential, and as a result, allowing your business to reach its full potential. I like to use this equation, or as you see at the top of the slide, I like to use this equation when talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It equals belonging. So diversity goes beyond race. You know, when we think of diversity, we usually think of the surface level diversity. So those are characteristics that are visible: age, body size, visual disabilities, race, or sex. There is also deep level disability, which are the characteristics that you don't see up front and will not know unless someone divulges it to you. So that includes religious beliefs, attitudes, norms, and political affiliation, just to name a few. Deep level diversity is just as important as surface level diversity. Next slide. So what are the benefits and disadvantages of diversity recruiting or hiring? As you can see, there are much more benefits than disadvantages. So some of the benefits: global competition. We all know that the workforce is becoming more global. A couple of years ago, your neighbor was in the cubicle next to you, or the company a block away. Now your partner in the work that you're doing could be in a totally different country. So global competition. Technology allows us to be more connected to each other, and therefore our competitor, the size or number of competitors are increasing. Creative and innovative thinking. So being creative and innovative because you have people that are coming with different mindsets, different beliefs, different attitudes, different experiences can all contribute to the workforce. It's not beneficial for everyone to think the same, look the same, act the same. That's really not how businesses that are successful that's not really the workforce of businesses that are successful. We find that the successful businesses have a diverse staff. Increased productivity. Increasing the productivity because, I'm sorry, is there someone that has their mic on? I keep hearing background. If you have your mic on, please turn it off for me. Thank you. Improving creativity, increasing profits, reducing employee turnover. Once again, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, that sense of belonging. If people feel like that they belong and they're a part of this company, they're going to want to stay. They're going to consider this, their second family, their home away from home. That's where you get the longevity and that loyalty from that individual. A wider range of skills. Once again, people coming from different experiences, different attitudes, different beliefs, and also different experiences and skills that can contribute to your workforce. Some of the disadvantages. Difficulty in transitioning. Of course, we know that for some people, change is difficult. So you might come across some staff, some in management, some at a C-suite level that have questions or a little hesitant about, changing how they recruit and how they retain and who they reach out to for their workforce. That is a disadvantage of that. Unhealthy tension for those incumbent workers, thinking, okay, are they going to be replaced? You're focusing more on diversifying your workforce. What does that mean for me? Does that mean that I won't get the opportunities that I thought I had for career advancement? So just that not knowing what is going to be the result of diversity recruiting and hiring. And then not eliminating the fear of, do I belong? Once again, for both new workers and incumbent workers, not knowing if they belong, not knowing if they have a voice, not knowing if their insights, their feedback is going to be respected, not knowing if they are appreciated as part of the team. That is one of those disadvantages as well. And of course, as you can see, there's plenty of other disadvantages in benefits to diversity recruiting and hiring. Next slide. So increasing diversity recruiting and hiring. So what are some of the things that you as an employer can do? What are some of the tips and tricks? First, audit your job descriptions. Job descriptions are your first opportunity to impress and attract a potential employee. So make sure that you promote if you are a diverse workforce, if you engage with different communities, if you are a part of any events or your networking revolves around, diversity recruiting or hiring, making sure that you promote that. There's nothing wrong with an employer promoting those things on their job description. Once again, that is your first opportunity to impress that potential employee. Promote your company's diversity. Once again, if you went from having a diversity of 10% and you went to 30%, promote that on your website. Promote that on your job description. Let that let the audience know that not only have you worked on diversifying your workforce, but you were successful at it. Target sources where diverse candidates congregate. Special BIPOC networking, education, industry groups. Make sure that you become involved in those groups. Extend the invitation for them to come and visit your location. Talk to your HR. Build that reputation, build that relationship with those different groups. Encourage your diverse employees to refer their connections. We know that usually referral from current employees is a big way that a lot of employers get new employees. So if you have employees from different BIPOC communities, encouraging them to reach out to their communities to talk about, their experiences, if positive, their experiences with the company. A lot of times, those communities will look at, okay, is someone from my community working for this employer? Okay, yes. Is this person experiencing or having a positive experience working for this company? Yes. Okay, now I'm interested. Let me go ahead and investigate this further and see if this is a company that I'd like to work for. Offer internships to targeted groups. So once again, there's nothing wrong with offering internships and opportunities for individuals from BIPOC communities and for those other communities to work work for your company. It benefits both. It gives that individual some experience and an opportunity to see firsthand how your company works from the inside. And then for you, it gives you an opportunity to promote that, to be known for offering opportunities to different communities, and to also check that individual out to see if that is someone that would be a good fit for your company. Create company policies that appeal to diverse candidates. So this is all about inclusion, making sure that when you are in the process of those policies, you do include individuals from different communities, from different groups to the table, allowing them to have a seat at the table to voice their thoughts and their opinions, and have them brainstorm to develop policies that will appeal to those diverse candidates. Using blind resumes. So, it's so easy to have a preconceived notion about someone based on their name, their address, their zip code. Using blind resumes. A lot of employers unfortunately miss out on an opportunity to have a perfect match or a perfect candidate work for their company because maybe, for example, if their address has a zip code of 55411, that's North Minneapolis, there might be some preconceived notions about and attitudes about individuals or residents that live in that area. So using the blind resumes, resorting everyone down to a number. They're not a name, they're a number that allows you to look at the experiences and the skill sets of those individuals and not to look at anything that really doesn't matter and really doesn't make a difference and doesn't prove if they're a good candidate or not, such as their name and their address and email. Diverse panel interviews, making sure that if you use diverse panels for interviews, that those panels represent the makeup of the company. So if your company is diverse, your interview panel should be diverse too. As a candidate, that could be from one of these BIPOC communities or from a different community, to see individuals that they can relate to on the panel, asking them questions, lets them know, okay, this company is serious about diversity. They do give opportunities to people of all backgrounds. I'm intrigued. I really like to work for this company. Check your biases at the door. We all have biases, and that's something that we can't get rid of, but that's something that we could not include when we are interviewing potential candidates for positions. Those biases, such as, once again, locations, if someone is older, if someone is younger, if they're a man, or if they're a woman working, trying to apply for a job that would be considered more of a male type of job, making sure that those biases do not influence your decision to hire or not hire that candidate. Outreach to diverse candidates for career pipelines. Once again, employer outreach to communities surrounding their location, especially BIPOC communities, are extremely important and it's beneficial. Gone are the days of waiting for job seekers and for candidates to come to you. In this climate, we encourage employers to go out to communities to develop those relationships and let those communities know that they exist, that their doors are open, and that they are looking for diverse candidates that don't look like them, but candidates that have the skills and the ability to do the jobs at that company. And then once again, or lastly, build a DEI advisory committee, making sure that there are a group of individuals made up of staff, management, C-suite, that will continue the work and the effort to make sure that your company's workforce is diverse. So making sure they're continuing with the blind resumes, continuing with the diverse panels, continuing with the internships to targeted groups, maybe developing mentor-mentee programs internally, connecting someone from the BIPOC community that's in an entry level to someone that's a C-suite level, so they'll get to know each other and know about each other's jobs and other things that would fall under diversity, equity, and inclusion. Next slide. So some of the tools for diversity recruiting and hiring. Some of the tools that we suggest include tests and assessments. Take an assessment of your workforce. See where you're at right now, where you're starting with. There's nothing wrong with starting from the beginning. If you're a company and you haven't did any efforts, did any work towards diversifying recruiting and hiring or diversifying your workforce, that's okay. It's better to start somewhere to not start at all. Networking groups for specific audiences. Once again, that goes back to looking at different community groups, different other groups that you can network with. For example, if you have a position that requires someone with advanced education, maybe an MBA, reaching out and connecting with the Minnesota chapter of the National Black MBA Association or the Minnesota chapter of the National Hispanic MBA Association or the National Asian MBA Association. So just targeting and researching those groups out there and making an effort to connect with them and build that relationship with them. Other online communities. There's tons of communities out here that work with individuals from different diverse groups. So connecting with them as well and developing that partnership. The country and regional or county and regional workforce development system. So we always strongly encourage, as Workforce Strategy Consultants, we encourage employers to connect with local and regional workforce development boards. If not to join, at the very least to know that they exist, to know about the services they provide and how they can help with connecting you to community resources for your recruiting and hiring needs as well. Local diversity councils, any diversity councils that you're aware of in your area. Once again, outreaching, developing relationships with those communities or with those councils. Maybe even if there's opportunity to be a part of that council representing your company. Of course, Deed Workforce Strategy Consultants, connect with the Workforce Strategy Consultant in your area for them to assist you with building a diversity, equity, inclusion action plan, connecting you to these resources that I just mentioned, or just to help with other ways to help you build your workforce. CareerForceMN.com. CareerForceMN.com is one of the state of Minnesota's platforms and has a plethora of resources, blogs, different things, different ways that you can connect, different articles that can help, different articles that focus on some of the topics that we're talking about today. That is a good resource for you as well. And then any additional tools that are out there. So the biggest thing is for employers to really outreach and take the initiative to step outside the door and reach out to those communities and reach out to those resources in their areas. Next slide. All right, so here's the second question for the audience. What's the one idea or strategy you'll take away from this presentation to use for recruiting diverse talent? Once again, you can put your answers in the chat box and we'll take a look at it and discuss it later on in this presentation. So I am now so excited and so happy to introduce our two guest speakers who will talk about what their companies are doing in this space. So first, let me introduce them to you. Our first guest speaker is Allison Hoserland, who is the VP of Human Resources for Doran Companies. So she oversees all of the HR functions and she administers best practice programs for Doran. So that includes compensation, benefit programs, hiring and onboarding, payroll administration, company development, and training programs. Next slide. Our second employer is Jim Windorf, VP of Human Resources for Viracon. Viracon is located in Owatonna, Minnesota. He oversees all HR direction and coordinations for Viracon. That includes locations here in Minnesota, Georgia, and a manufacturing site in Brazil. So I would like to welcome both Allison and Jim Thank you very much for being a part of this. Allison, we'll go ahead and start with you and have you talk about Doran Companies and what you guys are doing.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here and talk about what we've been doing. So Doran Companies, we are a real estate development company. We have a variety of divisions and employees. We have a construction team, we have an architecture team, we have our development team, and we also do property management. So we staff up properties we build around the Twin Cities. So we have quite the range of employees working at Doran. We have recently started down this road of DEI and really started last, during 2020 and everything that was going on. And so we comprised a diversity DEI council, and we have initiatives we've started, education series, training, just within that council. And now we're kind of moving into phases of, how are we rolling out our initiatives, planning into 2022. So, we're headed down the road, and it's been quite the experience, just really learning about ourselves inwardly through this process. But we're very, very excited to be forging ahead with our initiatives.
Next slide.
So here is how our committee is comprised. We've divided up into 5 different areas that our council, kind of a mini team, if you will. So I myself am part of the workforce mini team. And so our focus is building that diverse and inclusive workforce and providing those equal opportunities and representing unique experiences and perspectives of our people and the communities that we do serve. The built environment, being part of, construction, being a general contractor, it's really important to us that we're working with, different vendors and out on those job sites and projects that, we're really understanding and solving some of the, segregation, discrimination, just so that we can engage more meaningfully with those communities that we're building in. And along with that, on the lower right side here, so the procurement team, they're working, to have relationships with those diverse subcontractors, suppliers for our projects. And that team has actually been making some great strides within this last year for that. Our community outreach group, their focus is on, getting out there in the community, partnering with different communities and groups, and providing our employees with opportunities to volunteer, and even more so just learn about all the different organizations that are out there that, we can be a part of and help in our community. And then lastly, the education and training, just making sure that we're promoting that self-awareness, and be able to shift our perspectives so that we're all understanding, the attitudes and feelings about all of this. So we've been had some really successful all company trainings that we've done, with some guest speakers, some education series. Unconscious bias was a big focus of ours earlier in the year when we rolled this out, and we received, wonderful feedback from our employees on starting this journey. So they're learning too. So that is the overview of our DEI committee.
Great. Next slide.
So again, to talk a little bit about, you know, workforce part, you know, we're really trying to focus on attracting, um, recruiting, and then retaining that diverse workforce. So that we are providing equal opportunities to everyone. You know, looking inward at our company, when we devised this council, you know, this is something that, you know, it all opened our eyes up by looking how we're made up as a company, that, you know, we do need to focus our efforts on this. You know, what we've done, this last year, we've researched diverse sourcing channels. We've partnered with different communities for diverse candidate outreach, specifically MND with Ada Shewa as our consultant, has been a huge help to us in thinking about how we're recruiting and how we're coming across in the marketplace as we post our jobs and where we post them. You know, and really, we want to provide that discrimination-free workplace. And then kind of as we're going through this, to monitor and evaluate our efforts, you know, throughout each year, so we can measure just how we're doing with this. All right.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Jem from Viracon.
Good morning to all. Thank you for inviting me. So I want to share a little bit about the Viracon story. Now, Viracon's a part of a larger company. Our parent company is Apogee. There's 9 different companies throughout the United States. Viracon's the largest one down in Owatonna, Minnesota. We've been around for 50 years. And, you know, I was reflecting on kind of our journey here with diversity, and it's been probably the last 25 years where we've seen a large diverse workforce, which for Southern Minnesota, we didn't have a lot of diversity for, you know, decades. And as it's been highlighted here earlier in the presentation, that's changed quite a bit. So I've been with the company 26 years. You know, in the late 90s, we started to see a lot of growth. And quite frankly, we were running out of a lot of big white farmers who wanted to come and work at Viracon. And we kind of scratched our head and said, hey, there's some, you know, immigrant groups coming into the area. We were the first one that we're aware of to hire a Somali in Owatonna. That individual kind of stopped and applied, and I recall we talked to him. That was probably in 1998, and we've had great success since that time. We wanted to be an employer of choice for the immigrant group, and it's been very successful for us. So let's get into some of the slides, and I'll walk through this. This is our Apogee-wide inclusion and diversity statement. I'm not going to read all this, but this is somewhat new. We've just finished this, and the only caveat I would have is that it's not been fully approved by our board of directors. But I think I wanted to share it because I think it's 99.9% done. You can see that we you know, inclusion is, you know, wanting to have people feel like they belong and can be recognized. Diversity, we feel, can be a strength for us, and we really want to look at the characteristics we're born with, the experiences we've had, and the decisions we've made. That's kind of how we would define diversity. And then equity, we want to create fairness in the workplace. There's 3 pillars that we've taken a look at. So one of the pillars is our team. We have our workplaces and our communities. So with our team, we want to you know, actively and intentionally recruit for diversity, challenge some of our recruiting methods and selection process and job requirements, and then ensure that our teams are representative of the diversity of our community and industry. And that industry is kind of manufacturing and construction is what Apogee does. Next slide, please. The next one's our workplace. We want to ensure mentoring and development programs are available for employees. Now, not all of those are in place. I'll tell you, we've had a little bit uneven history with some of this. There's times we've done better with different development programs. You know, like many employers, the last year with COVID, we've kind of paused a lot of our things that we've done. We know we need to restart different initiatives. So, but that's something that's key for us, is developing the people we have. We want to support leaders in developing succession plans and identifying diverse talent across our business and functions. And then we want to develop a culture of inclusion, of diversity, dignity, and respect for everyone within our workplace. Next slide. Lastly, our community. We want to partner with diversity and educational resources. We do that with a couple area community colleges that we have in our area. There's also, you know, different diverse groups that have come into the area, and we want to make sure that we're aligned with them. We know who they are, and we partner with them. And then we also feel like we can play a role within the community to advance some of the thinking within the community when it comes to diversity. You know, we brought in a number of people. We now have probably close to 400 people of color. We have probably 20 plus countries of origin the last time we checked, primarily from you know, the Horn of Africa. It's not just Somali. We have Sudanese and several other countries that are represented. And then within South and Central America, all of those countries are represented with someone. The one thing we haven't done is we haven't employed anybody from Iowa, and I draw the line there. We don't want any Iowa people. Next slide, please. That's a joke for my Iowa people. The other thing I would just say for Viracon is we put in some things in place to really create an environment where everyone can you know, achieve to the best of their ability and talent. And we approach diversity more as a business imperative. It wasn't kind of, you know, we have this social conscious and that's why we're doing it. All of it is good, but it's really helped us, I think, become a better employer. We've had a better workforce. We've got people who are very engaged and loyal to Viracon, and that's helped us as an employer. And we really focus on what do people share in common more than what they have different. Now, you know, our journey has had challenges at times. You know, we've had cultural issues, everything from bathroom etiquette issues to food and cleaning up, you know, after themselves, to lack of respect for women in the workplace. And we've dealt with all of that stuff. So it's been quite a journey. We've learned a lot, but it's been very, very rewarding and helpful for our organization to have a diverse workforce. So I'll stop here and we'll get into any of the questions that might come up.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Jim. Definitely great insights into what your companies are doing for the not only diversity recruiting and hiring, but just the retention piece as well. So this is our Q&A portion of the event. So we'll be asking you a few questions. Allison, I'll start with you. So Doran recently conducted an audit of their job descriptions and made changes suggested by both the Deed Warfare Strategy consultant, myself, and then with discussions with you. As a result, Doran received a more for some of their most recent job openings. Can you give us more detail on some of the changes you made specifically and which changes you felt produced the best outcome?
Yeah, so our previous job description. So Doran, and I should probably say we're pretty small. We're about 150 people. When I came on board in 2016, it was about 80 people. So we've had some growth and things, just kind of get in the motion of what they've always been. And, and as we've had growth, we were noticing, just our applicant pool from where we posted our descriptions we had just kind of produced the same results every time we post. And so once we, started working in the DEI space and with, our internal counsel, we thought, well, we should probably look at changing this up because we're just not attracting diverse candidates. And so Adeshewa and I, we had met and gone over them a few times and got some great suggestions from her. And we then kind of, messed with it on our end. And what we did, we took the focus off. Our job descriptions were very much so, this is what Doran Companies is, like right away when you get the post. Doran Companies, the history, and then it would kind of go into, here's the job, and here's every responsibility you're going to have. It wasn't very personal feeling. So what we did was we kind of switched it up where we took the position and started out as, for example, maintenance supervisor at one of our properties. Took that, and that first statement they would read would be, as maintenance supervisor, you are, a key employee because of, these 4 things. And here's how you'll collaborate with your team. And then really focused on it as them being able to envision themselves in that role. What does your day-to-day look like? And then, we moved down and here's about the company, kind of at the end. And I think that really, people read it, it felt more personal. And one of the other things we did that I think has caused, quite a lot more traction on diverse candidates, we took away a lot of the details for, every position. You have your required skills, you have, an education level you're looking for, but we really took that and made it very plain. So basically, kind of leaving off that education requirement in some instances. And once we did that, we recently had quite a few jobs available. The amount of diverse candidates we got was just absolutely astounding to me. And because of that, our last 6 hires, I'm going on 7 just this week, have all been diverse candidates. And so it's just those little changes made a huge difference on that audience that, is looking and reading and felt that they could apply for this position. So, I mean, just those few little minor changes really, really helped us. And we're seeing just a complete difference in our candidate pool now.
All right. Thank you. Jim, I didn't work with you. I haven't worked with you. You're not in my region, but I would say same question applies. Has Viracon looked at their job descriptions? Have they made any changes to their job descriptions for it to become more personal? And have you seen any positive results from that as well?
We haven't yet. It's something we've talked about, especially in the skilled and maybe entry-level professional areas. That is something we're taking a look at. We've always promoted from within. We're kind of a typical manufacturer, so we do have, a number of professionals, a number of degreed people, but, to be a supervisor, to be a production manager, we haven't always required a degree or, any formal training because we've promoted from within. So I think we're maybe in a different place than other employers. But we have, I think the biggest aid we've done is we have translators. We have right now 4 different languages being spoken in our Owatonna plant. We have English, obviously, we have Spanish, we have Somali, and then we have Karen. Karen is some people might not be aware of, is a Southeast Asian group. Karen is spelled like the female name Karen. And they come kind of from Thailand, Laos area. And we have a group that has come into the Austin Albert Lee region, so not too far from us. So that's been another group of immigrants that's been very helpful for us. So we do aid with some language translation, and with our internal training, we're able to promote people pretty quickly.
All right, thank you. And just a side note, I know one of the questions from the audience was if it was possible to see a copy of one of Doran's job descriptions. So Allison, I'll follow with you on that. And if you're okay with that, we can share that with the group afterwards. And I also just want to mention that that's one of the blogs that we'll be working on is tips and best practices to create or improve your job description to attract more diverse candidates too. So once we get that on Career Force, we'll go ahead and share that with employers as well. So, all right, well, let's continue with the questions. Jim, I'll go back to you. So under the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color category, there isn't a one size fits all, as we all know. So Viracon has taken the initiative to reach out to the Somali community in the Mankato area. What has been your experience engaging with that community, and how has it shaped Viracon's strategy when engaging with other groups?
Sure, and just a quick footnote, it's more than Mankato, it's been Owatonna Faribault area,
Okay.
kind of along the Interstate 35.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep, and that group's interesting. The Somalis tend to be Muslim, and so that was huge to us. We had to learn about prayer. We had to accommodate prayer. We went to their local mosque and talked to them, and we've supported some of their recreational activities. They have a soccer team that will go around and play in different tournaments, and we've sponsored that. Eid is a big celebration for them. The break of Ramadan, so we certainly are aware of that. Several of us have celebrated in their mosque different holidays. So we've tried to extend ourselves and kind of understand and share their culture. The other thing we've done is we've done a good job accommodating prayer. Muslims need to pray 5 times a day. So some of those prayer times will be during the work time. We actually have set up different prayer areas that make it very convenient for them to do their washing, to quickly do their prayer, and to get back to work. So if you're not familiar with their prayer area or prayer routine, you should Google it. There's several good videos that talk about wudu. WUDI is kind of their prayer routine. We've made people familiar with that, and to extend to that group and be respectful to some of their deeply held religious beliefs, I think has helped us, especially with that Somali group.
All right. Thank you. And just as kind of a piggyback to that, to the question, Viracon has also embraced the second chance community. Can you elaborate on Viracon's experience recruiting from that community as well?
Sure. We've had for really decades, our whole history, we've been very open to hiring people who have been incarcerated, who have records and so on. We're not working with children. We're not working with vulnerable adults. So we feel like, we can bring them into our manufacturing environment without any risk. At any given time, we probably have 6 people who are incarcerated. We work with them when they're on work release. We accommodate their schedule because those folks will have, drug testing things and court dates they have to go to. And we've welcomed people who have records. We understand that people want to move in a more positive direction with their life. Having a job in many ways defines who you are, and we've been an employer. I'm proud to say for many years who has been open to hiring people who have been incarcerated, and it's been something where we've had dozens of people have been very successful that fall in that category. So we'll continue to do this, and we're very happy to do so.
Right. Thank you. So this is a question for both Allison and Jim. So early in the presentation, I had the equation on one of the slides that said diversity plus equity plus inclusion equals belonging. So, in a nutshell, employees want to feel like they belong. This is their home away from home. Outside of their home, this is where they spend most of the time, is in the workplace, pre-COVID, and for some even, returning to work. But there's still that lack of understanding of what's the difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion. How I like to look at it is diversity is inviting everyone into the meeting room. Equity is making sure you're accommodating everyone with chairs so everyone feels comfortable in those chairs, no matter what size, height, what have you. And inclusion is allowing everyone to actually speak and have their voice be heard. And so, there's more work, there's more to be done just, beyond diversity. So my question is for both of you. What does diversity, what does equity, what does inclusion mean to you, to your company, especially when it comes to recruiting, hiring, and then if we even want to go into, retaining your workforce? How do you define those three?
Allison, you want to go?
Sure, I will go. Yeah, so, I would say, diversity to our company, equity and inclusion. I mean, yes, it's very similar, Adeshewa, to what you were saying. We want people to feel they belong here. We want them to have a voice. We want them to, be included. But it's, really for us as a company, just, very new to this, whole strategy is, we want to make sure we're listening to people, and we're bringing in people that are gonna, help us, that have different experiences. One thing we find here, we talk a lot about groupthink when you're looking at, unconscious bias and similar groups of people all together all the time, and you don't get very far with the same over and over. And so I feel that, diversity, bringing in, those people with backgrounds that are going to share with us different experiences, different perspectives on, what we're doing as a company that we may have never even thought about. And keeping people feeling that inclusion, that yes, you are a member of this team, and what you have to say is important, and we want you to share those ideas and experiences, and really training our employees right now, to be listening and sharing those ideas. And so really with the retention side of that, it is keeping that consistent, and making sure that, we are communicating that across the company as a whole, that, it is important to listen and share experiences that is going to typically better us for the long run, rather than staying in that same box, with those same ideas. So, that's, in a long-winded version, that's what it means to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't add a whole lot. Again, we want to create an environment where everyone feels like they can reach their full potential. Our kind of company color is deep blue. So our kind of informal mantra is we want people to bleed blue we don't care what color you are, just as long as you're, a Viracon employee and you bleed blue. We're large enough and diverse enough where when you come into our environment, you're always going to see someone who looks like you. As I said, we have great diversity. We encompass many different, ethnicities and nationalities. And so I think that helps people. I think it helps us as an employer where people feel comfortable. There's somebody who speaks their native tongue. There's a translator. And we also are acutely aware that, hey, we need employees. We need people to stay, and supervisors and lead people. They know that, if I get this new person today, I got to really covet them, because HR is not going to be able to replace them very quickly because there's a lack of employees, especially in southern Minnesota. So we right now are doing a pretty good job with that, engaging people, making them feel welcome, making them feel part of the team, and that's served us well so far.
Great. Thank you so much. Now I know that we're wrapping up. We're almost at the end of our time. So I have one more quick question for both of you, and then we'll end the presentation. So just really quickly, for Allison and Jim, what is that one piece of advice for small to medium-sized employers who haven't or just started down this road? What's that one piece of advice that you would give them? Because we know that with small to medium-sized employers, usually it's one person wearing multiple hats. And so it could be challenging, not impossible, but a little more challenging than a bigger company. So yeah, just that one piece of advice that you have for those employers.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. I would say absolutely start down the path. Just the process of the internal learning that you're going to do yourself is so worth it. It's eye-opening. And for us, it's, just in this short time of a year and a half, the difference in, this talent pool we're getting. And I mean, gosh, we would have missed out on some really great talent if we kept doing the same old thing day to day. But, it isn't easy to start. It's a little bit scary, but I say it's absolutely worth it to start getting your plan in place. There are great resources out there for you, especially Deed, and a lot of other organizations that can help coach through, starting to go down this path. So I highly recommend it.
Yep, my what I would tell somebody is don't be afraid. You're often dealing with people who look differently than you, who have different cultures, different food, different haircuts, different religion, dress differently, but don't be afraid. Ask questions. I've had people tell me, well, how do I shake a female Somali's hand, or what do I do? And, it's a learning for everyone. But I found if you're upfront, if you're sincere, ask questions, ask some of the diverse people, how do we engage your community? As an employer, we come to the table with a job, and a job is pretty empowering. And, I would encourage people to, jump in there and ask questions. Don't be afraid.
All right. Thank you. So with that, let me go into review, and then we'll talk about next month's Workforce Wednesday topic, and then Jackie, our director, will close. So if you want to go to the next slide. So in review, Minnesota is expected to become more diverse in the next 20 or 17 years. I should have changed that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion equals a sense of belonging. Benefits for diversity recruiting and hiring always will outweigh the disadvantages. Diversity recruiting and hiring is a process. Rushing will not get the results you want. Take your time. It's better to do it right the first time than to do it quickly and always having to change up or go back to make changes. Outreach and consulting with the BIPOC community leaders is important, or just the BIPOC community in general. And lastly, there are tools available to support your efforts to recruit diverse talent. Utilize the talents that DEED has, utilize the talents that agencies and organizations outside of DEED has. So next slide. Once again, thank you for being a part and listening to this presentation. Here's a picture of the workforce strategy consultants and the regions that they cover. We will go ahead and send this out to everyone after. And then next, I will have my counterpart, Sean Herhusky, talk about next month's topic.
Hello, everyone. Adishia, that was a fantastic job. You did great. And all the
Thank you.
speakers, you did fantastic. So I want to be the first, I get to be the first person to say that. So that's awesome. So I hope you're able to join us next month. That's September 1st. That's a Wednesday at 11 a.m. We'll be talking about resident recruitment. One of the things we hear as workforce strategy consultants all the time is the inability to hire at this particular time, the workforce shortage and some of those difficulties. And one of the things you can do to address that is resident recruitment initiatives. So we're going to have some experts from across the state join us in a more roundtable format in order to discuss what's been successful, what hasn't been successful, what large and small businesses can do in regards to resident recruitment. So I'm hoping that everybody's able to join us.
And next, I just want to say that we're going to take a few minutes here before we move to Workforce Wednesday Unplugged. For those of you who need to leave, in the Unplugged session, you'll be able to turn your camera on. You'll be able to unmute and better engage with not only the workforce strategy consultants, but our two fabulous presenters today. This is your opportunity to ask questions in the Unplugged session. And so when you do that, we would just ask that you raise your hand, and Jessica Miller, another one of our strategists, will be facilitating that part of this. So we'll just keep it quiet for 2 or 3 minutes for people to end if they can't stay on. Otherwise, stay on and we will be answering your questions shortly. Thanks.